वेलकम टू वी लर्न में आपका स्वागत है. Topic for today's discussion is mergers and acquisition, section 6, that is joint venture. Topics to be covered are introduction, meaning of joint venture, characteristics of joint venture, rationale for joint ventures, joint ventures in business strategy, joint ventures and complex learning, identifying objectives, selecting a partner, choosing the business form, identifying legal problems, identifying conflict between partners, drafting the joint venture agreement, the tax aspect of joint venture, international joint venture, reasons of failure, joint venture and antitrust policy. An introduction to what basically joint ventures are and why it is needed. Because अब globalization इतनी हो रही है, there is a lot of globalization, lot of liberalization happening, टेक्नोलॉजी की एडवांसमेंट बहुत हो रही है, तो joint venture is becoming a very important tool. It is becoming a very important strategy. It helps in curbing the competition. It helps in improving the performances in a globalized economy. So, with an increase in the international travel, so businesses are now being operating in world without any borders. So businesses are facing a situation where there are boundless, borderless entities. So in this particular scenario, joint ventures have become a strategy which facilitates the business operation in a most fruitful manner. Now, what basically joint ventures are? They are the commercial arrangement between two or more entities, and these entities are basically independent entities. They have their own work operations. They work entities, but when they decide to work together on commercial grounds, they become joint ventures. Now, there are legal form of joint ventures which is determined by variety of factors. These factors, they are like the size of the enterprise, what kind of business basically they are into, for how long a duration the venture is to be carried out, that is the anticipated length of the venture. What would be the commercial or financial objective? Say for example, Mahindra and Renault, they both decided to shake hands together to commercialize Logan in India. So that's a joint venture between the two companies. Alright. Now, what are the characteristics of joint ventures? Regardless of the structure of the parties, there are certain characteristics. First, it is not a very passive investment. Both the parties, or if there are more parties than two, all the parties, they need to contribute the skill or the money or the both. They are required to contribute skill and money both. Second characteristic is the joint venture is undertaken only for a single business rather than the long-term relationship for a project, single project only. The third characteristic is it is an extension of both or all the parties of their commercial agreement activities. So all the parties, they decide to extend their activities commercially to each one of them. Now there is an association between the participant. It must be invariably regulated by the written record. There has to be a written record for the association. Now, what are the rationales for joint ventures? Why joint ventures are taken care of? First, to augment insufficient financial or technical ability to enter a particular line of business. Supposedly, if a company A is trying to venture out into a line of business in which it does not have the required technical or financial ability, company A may decide to collaborate with company B to form a joint venture so that the business is fruitful to both of them. Another is to share technology and generic management skills, right? This helps in benefit of both the organization. Further, joint venture, they also diversify risk in the sense that both the parties now share the risk jointly. Not a single participant is there who's sharing the risk wholly, right? To obtain distribution channels in or raw material supply. That's a very great deal. To achieve economies of scale, because the two entities are jointly coming together, they achieve economies of scale. Now, to extend activities with smaller investment than if done independently, right? To take advantage of favorable tax treatment or political incentives, because joint ventures, they are entitled for certain tax treatments or incentives. Joint venture in business strategy. So a strategic alliance is one where two or more businesses, they join together as for a set period of time. So what are the characteristics of strategic alliances? There are two or more firms that unite together to pursue some agreed upon goals, right? All the partner firms, they share the benefit of the alliances and they all have the control over the assigned task. Now all the partner firms, they contribute on the continuing basis. It's not that they contribute at one point in time and then they become the sleeping partners. No, their contribution is on a continuing basis in one or more key strategic area or service sector products. Now, what are the advantages of strategic alliance? It helps in gaining a means of distribution in international marketing, right? Also, it helps in overcoming legal or regulatory barriers. Joining hands with a firm who has a legal advantage over the firm which does not have lead to overcoming the regulatory barriers. Now, if a firm does, its history is not of producing a particular product and wants to venture out into a new product, joint venture or strategic alliance with another firm proves very beneficial. It helps in diversifying, and more so when two or more firms get into a mode of strategic alliance, then the chances of competition are reduced because the prospective competitors now have joined hands and they are serving the consumers together and not in competition. Now the focus on new product becomes more evident in case of strategic alliances. There are companies that use joint venture as part of their business strategy. So there are basically three major challenges that they face. The first is there are no universal rules on how to structure and operate a joint venture. So each joint venture has their own structure and own way of operating. Also, all the parent companies, all the partner firms, they must share a vision and they all should agree on a strategy for creating and sustaining values. The parties to the transaction, they must establish a business startup with all the functions required. They must have all the functions like executive team, they must have marketing, they must have finance, they must have HR, they must have admin, they must have support. So they must establish a business which has all the functions. The planning stages essential to the formation of a joint venture are: first is identifying objectives. First, there should be a need to identify for which a joint venture is to be created. Then who can be a partner to the joint venture, who could successfully contribute to the objectives of the joint venture. Now the next steps comes in: what could be the business form? Then one needs to also identify the legal problems as to what kind of challenges and legalities that the firms that the joint venture can face. Now, what are the conflict between the partners that needs to be identified and addressed before actually signing an agreement? Once all these issues are highlighted, all these issues are addressed, then finally the joint venture agreement is drafted. As far as tax aspect of joint venture is concerned, Indian income tax, it gives certain benefits to industries which are set up as 100% export oriented unit or export processing zones. So person investing in the bonds of such companies, they do not pay tax on the interest received. So the interest income here in this particular case is tax free. The government also offer industries set up in the rural areas by way of actual cash disbursement or reduced range of lands. In case of international joint venture, it is a situation wherein only one of the variety of means by which a domestic owner of a technology can exploit or develop the technology in a foreign market. So the underlying is the domestic owner of a technology, he can exploit or he can further add on to the technology in the foreign market. So the method of exploiting a technology in the foreign market could be either export, through export he can do it, or through licensing, or any kind of contractual arrangement and direct investments. A typical joint venture between two international parties, it must incorporate a company. Business of one party is transferred to the company. Shares are issued by and subscribed by the party. Another is promoter shareholder of an existing company and a third party. Its shares are taken by the said third party through payment in cash. Now, why joint ventures are failures? Why do they fail? But they fail because of disappearing market. Disappearing markets in the sense that the joint venture was established to cater to a market with high rise in demand for a product A. Since that market has started disappearing, then joint venture fails because it has reached a saturation level. Another is lagging technology. If the technology used in joint venture is not up to date, it is lagging behind, then joint venture fails. Supposedly, if the partners or the partner firms, they are unable to honor the contract, in that scenario also the joint venture fails. And when the joint venture is not able to address the cultural differences, because it also plays a very important role. So when the cultural differences are not taken care of, the JVs also fail. When there is a government destabilizing or there is a dwindle in the economy, so JV fails. When we talk about joint venture and antitrust policy, under the new Indian Competition Act 2002, the Competition Commission of India, that is CCI, was set up in 2003, but it could not become fully functional, operational, as central government refrained from notifying some important provisions in the Competition Act. CLG competition and antitrust practice. They are representing clients before the MRTP Commission in monopolistic and restrictive trade practice, legal advice, and sophisticated insight into the competition law. Consultancy services on specific issue, supply, distribution, pricing, and marketing. Competition audit and due diligence for developing appropriate guidelines for distributors, employees, and agents. There are legal due diligence on anti-competition, unfair and restrictive market practices. Another is drafting claims, counterclaims, replies and rejoinders, representation, etc. There are strategic policing on anti-competition market practice and trends. What is the meaning of joint ventures and what are the characteristics of joint venture? Thank you and have a nice day. Keep learning and be learning.